they should have to speak to that. But we're not, we can't, and we aren't in the business of telling private companies how to execute their initiatives.
Yeah, but Twitter's a private company too. So why is Twitter getting one treatment and Apple's getting another? Is my question.
Our lead story of the day is Fox News anchor Martha MacCallum going head-to-head with John Kirby here regarding the White House going after Twitter, but not going after Apple for Apple colluding in China regarding the Chinese protests that are taking place over there. And boy, oh boy, he must have been rubbing shoulders with Karine Jean-Pierre a little bit too much here because, God, he sounds a lot like her. He fumbles through his words. He don't know what to say, and he's caught lying. Without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
But why not say something to Apple? Because we were just told the other day that the White House is keeping an eye on Elon Musk and Twitter. So why would you say that from the podium? You didn't say it, but Karine Jean-Pierre said it, and not call Apple out for helping the Chinese government to suppress their own people's ability to communicate?
Again, I think we've been very clear and consistent on this. Certainly publicly, we've been very open about our desires to be able to see citizens communicate. And Apple, if this is a decision that they're making, then they should have to speak to that. But we're not, we can't, and we aren't in the business of telling private companies how to execute their initiatives.
Yeah, but Twitter's a private company too. So why is Twitter getting one treatment and Apple's getting another? Is my question.
Well, these are completely two different circumstances. You're talking about the potential. Well, you're talking about the potential for perhaps foreign investment and involvement in the management of Twitter. That's a different issue than what we're talking about here, which is a business decision by Apple with respect to how one of their applications is being utilized.
Certainly, they're getting influence.
A business decision on how one of their applications being utilized over at Apple by working in conjunction with the Chinese government to suppress speech by Chinese protesters. So they're able to determine how they want their app to work. But when Twitter does the exact same thing, which is another private company, on handling misinformation, hate speech, disinformation, whatever it may be, all of a sudden, all the eyes of the federal government, the White House, the executive branch are on that app. They're on Twitter. They're looking at Elon. But hey, you know what? We're all for this one app or Apple working in conjunction with the Chinese government. Talk about splitting hairs, you guys, and talk about a lot of BS that just came out of that man's mouth. Like I said, he's rubbing shoulders with Karine Jean-Pierre or something because, God, oh God, they're mimicking one another from saying, oh, we've been so clear on this, to then BSing an answer from a question of which was asked, but then flips it to answer a question that was never asked. Typical of the White House.
By a foreign government, and that government is China. And Apple's policies, they've changed policies specifically for China when it comes to what they put on their phones.
Right.
I mean, that seems like something that the White House ought to be able to keep an eye on.
I certainly think that's a fair question to ask Apple and try to make them communicate why they did this.
But I'm asking, has the White House done that? Have you reached out to them as a matter of national security, since we obviously have national security concerns with China, who they seem to be aiding in this process?
Sure. I don't have any communications to speak to specifically with Apple executives. Again, it's a private.
Convenient, right? Convenient. I always like to point out, can we just call the elephant out in the room? Where's the World Health Organization? Where's the UN? Where's anybody out on the fact that China literally released a virus out there for the globe and lied about it? Where are they paying the damages? We should, you know what? Why don't they forfeit the debt that we have with them? That could be a good start. Or why don't they give us a boatload of money, however it may work? But we're not going to talk about that because the Biden administration is in bed with the Chinese government, folks. We've talked about the business handlings from his son, Hunter Biden. He's the big guy. Somehow 1 million barrels of oil goes to the province of where Hunter Biden and the Biden family have some investments in. How'd that happen? And that's from our petroleum reserve, by the way, from Americans. So it's thing after thing after thing. And God, I can't wait till Elon releases the documents, folks, showing the Biden administration trying to work in conjunction with Twitter before Elon got it to suppress speech, to suppress conservatives, Republicans, and sit there and peddle and meddle in our elections. I can't wait for it to drop, but let's continue.
Private company, they make these policies and they should have to answer for that. What we want to see is that citizens are reliably able to communicate, whether it's a time of crisis or not.
Yeah, but I go back to this same thing, because we were just told that the White House will keep an eye on Twitter because they're concerned about the new Twitter 2.0 that Elon Musk is putting in, where he wants more free speech on Twitter. So they're going to keep an eye on Twitter, and yet you're taking a hands-off approach. You say there's been no communication with Tim Cook at Apple about this process in China with the Chinese government?
Martha, I'm not aware that there's been any conversations specifically with Apple on this particular issue. It's a private company. And as for Twitter, again, Martha, these are apples and oranges.
He keeps saying it's a private company, but so's Twitter. Again, it goes back to the same thing. And this is where you see the BSing from time and time again. It all falls through the cracks. They're going to sit there and say that they're not paying attention. Oh, Apple could do whatever they want, but Twitter can't. But yet all eyes are going to be on Twitter. We're going to watch them for hate speech, misinformation, all these other things. All the while, for years, Twitter, when it was ran by these woke leftists, these progressive leftists, in conjunction with pockets of the Democrat Party, were suppressing the speech of conservatives and Republicans. They were suppressing advertisement from conservatives and Republicans as well, meddling in our elections, possibly working with the Biden administration and Democrats to do so. And Elon's talked about releasing it all. And God, oh God, I can't freaking wait. I know I'm repeating myself, but this guy right here is going to split hairs like that. And in a sense, BS all of you to our faces. And normally John Kirby doesn't do that much BSing. He lies to us and manipulate and twist stuff, but not like this. And when we're talking about an enemy or an adversary, and you got a corporation that's working in conjunction with it in collusion, private or not, man, what the hell? You're talking to a conservative Republican. I think I enjoy the freedoms and liberties that private companies should have. But if you're working with an enemy in collusion and you're sitting there running an app to suppress the speech of others, but yet you're supposed to uphold free speech, and you're working with a foreign government to suppress the speech of others, who the hell does that, and why is that okay? But he doesn't know anything about this. It's so amazing. And if you recall, Philip Wegman of Real Clear Politics asked the White House, God, it must have been 4 or 5 times, regarding TikTok and how TikTok has been enabling features on there to follow certain government officials and follow Americans and track them and trace them. And they had no idea. Oh, well, at first it was, well, we don't have a clue. I'll get back to you on it. They never got back to the man, even though he asked about 3 times. Then he asks again, and all of a sudden there's some sort of small investigation on it that's not pertaining to his question, but yet they still can't answer because there's some sort of investigation going. But then when it's about Apple, they don't have a clue. But then when they're asked a question about Twitter, they're watching it all closely, folks. All eyes are on it. We know what's going on. We're monitoring the situation. It's a little weird. It's really weird. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments below, folks. I would love your input on it. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.